Hello guys and welcome to another Hellfire Citadel Mythic guide. I'm Roger Brown and with me I have Josue.
Good day, everyone.
And today we're gonna go flying. We're gonna go kill Shadow Lord Iskar and this is a guide how to do so.
In order to bring this bird down, you're gonna need 2 tanks, 4 healers and 14 DPS. It doesn't really matter which DPS you use, but good cleave DPS is recommended for the phase 2s. As for the healers, using a shaman healer is really good, as he can do both the dispels and the interrupts in phase 2.
So just like in Heroic, the main mechanic is the Eye of Anzu, which is the little trinket thingy over your head, and you need to throw it to different players in order to handle all the mechanics of the fight. Now, what this eye does, specifically to its ability, we'll get into as we are explaining the abilities. But in general, there are 2 things that the eye does. Either it does the uncontrolled radiance, which is when no one has the eye, it just explodes to the whole raid and does AoE damage, which is not good. And then you have Radiance of Anzu, which is whoever has the eye takes single target damage, and also he gets a stack which increases the damage that he takes every time. So that's why one player can't just hold the eye the whole fight, because he's just going to take way too much damage.
Now there's 2 abilities in the first phase, which the Eye of Anzu can help you control with. The first one is the Phantasmal Winds. This is going to push back players down into the abyss. You don't want to fall off, and to remove the debuff, you need to throw the eye to them. You can use Exorcist raid tools. This has an Iskar assist module, which is really going to help people clicking the raid frames and sending the eye as fast as they can. And the second ability is Shadow Riposte. This is a new Mythic encounter ability. Boss casts this ability on the player that is currently holding the eye, and once the cast finishes, he'll drop the eye onto the ground. Now to not have the eye dropping on the ground, you can just throw the eye away to someone else in the raid when this cast is happening.
If it happens so that the cast goes off and the person holding the eye was too slow to throw it away, then you just need to go and pick it up instantly. It doesn't matter who, just pick it up fast, because as we said, it's going to cast uncontrolled radiance and do AoE damage to everyone, so you don't want that. Now moving on to the next abilities, which the eye doesn't affect, you have the Fell Chakram, which I'm sure everyone has seen, even in Heroic and Normal, it's very visual. Now this ability will target 1 melee DPS, 1 ranged player and 1 tank. And the boss will throw this chakram and it will bounce off these 3 people, but always in the same order. It will first go to the ranged DPSer or healer, and then it will go from them to the melee DPSer, and then lastly to the tank before going back to the boss. Now you don't want anyone to be in the path of that chakram or be close to these explosions, because the further away you are from them, the less damage you take. So the way we handle it is we have the raid positioned kind of in the middle of the room and a little bit towards the entrance, and the ranged DPSer or healer who gets targeted moves to the left side of the room. The melee DPSer moves in the back of the room, like straight forward, and then the tank moves to the right side of the boss. So basically the chakram will just do a circle and then go back to the boss, and hopefully no one will get hit by it in its path.
Now the next ability is mostly for the healers. This is Phantasmal Wounds. The boss will inflict shadow damage to the raid to random people, and then they have a dot on them until they get healed up to 90%. This does not have a duration, so you really need to heal them up. You can also remove this with the Eye of Anzu, but since the healing is not really hard in this fight, you just heal it up and ignore the eye mechanic.
And then the last ability that the boss casts in phase 1 is called Fell Incineration. This is just a laser beam which follows a random player for a few seconds, and also leaves a trail of green fire behind it. Now, because the damage is not that intense from this laser beam or the fire on the ground, it's advisable to just stand still and take it like a man, let's say, until it is over. Now, the reason we do this on our kills is because this way you just stack the fire on top of each other, and therefore you have more room free to move around. And that's more important than just avoiding a few damages which can easily be healed, because in phase 1 there's not really that much damage going on.
And once the boss reaches 70%, this is when we're going to enter the first phase 2. The first time we're going to see 3 different types of ads. First one is the Phantasmal Radiance. This is a new Mythic mechanic ad that's going to be there in every single phase 2. The next one is the Corrupted Priest of Tarak. Just like in Heroic and Normal, this is also going to be there in every single phase 2. And the third ad is the Illusionary Outcast. These are there in the first and second phase 2. Now to come back to the Mythic only ad, the Phantasmal Radiance. This is an image from the boss, and it will leave it behind wherever the boss was and when it leaves into phase 2. Now this ad has only one ability, which is Change of Despair. It's going to make 3 pairs of 2 people linked together. You cannot see the links unless you're holding the Eye of Anzu. Now because you can't see the links unless you're holding the Eye of Anzu, you're going to need to find time in between handling the other abilities from the ads that you've already been used to from Heroic and Normal to actually find these pairs.
The 6 players who get this debuffs, which are called the Dark Bindings. It is always going to be 2 melees and then 4 ranged players who get it. And now the hard part about this mechanic is not to find your partner, because you could just run around until you find your partner. The problem is if you actually touch the wrong guy, who is not actually your soulmate, then you both actually die. So that's why you need to make sure that you know who you're linked to and only go on top of him. That is why when this cast is being casted, everyone needs to spread away so that you don't actually have 2 people standing on top of each other and then they both get the debuffs, but they're not actually the pair, so they both instantly die. So everyone needs to spread out, wait for this debuff to be casted, and then whoever doesn't have a debuff can just stack up again, doesn't matter. But those guys who did get the debuff need to stay away from each other until they actually have the information of who they are linked to. Now, of course, when 2 of these pairs have already been broken, as in they've moved to each other and they knew it was that pair and they removed the debuffs, when there's only 2 people left, it's obvious that they are the last pair. So they don't even need the eye to see this, they can just move together and that's it. Now moving on to the Corrupted Priest of Terok, the only ability that he is casting is the bombs, or as they are properly called, Phantasmal Obliterations. Now these bombs, they will just go to random players, and in order to remove them, you need to throw the eye to a healer, and then he can see the guy who has the special debuff, which if you dispel it, removes all the bombs to the whole raid. Now, if you don't have this, you can also, of course, just spread out with these bombs and let these guys explode on themselves, but that's unnecessary movement, so yeah, you should throw the eye to the healer, he dispels the debuff, and everything is fine.
Now whichever healer is going to be dispelling these bombs needs to make sure he's dispelling the right target. Once you have the eye, there's only one debuff, which is a green debuff, and it's called Fel Bomb, that you can dispel. All the other Phantasmal Fel Bombs are not dispellable, and trying to dispel them will just fail. The last ads that you're going to be seeing in this first phase 2 are the Illusionary Outcasts. These are just the small mobs, tank and spank, they don't do anything special besides melee attacking, so you just cleave them down.
Now during this phase 2, as we mentioned, Iskar is going to fly away, hiding from everyone else. Now while he is flying, he will cast one ability twice every phase 2, which is called Focused Blast. Now what this does is, it's a massive laser which targets a random player and it shoots it towards him in a straight line. Now this laser does a lot of damage, but it does get split amongst all the players who are in that line. The way you handle this is just have everyone stand in the same line, and the easiest thing to do is just stand in the middle of the room, like in a straight line from the entrance towards the boss. Now once this phase is over, which by the way is determined purely on time, doesn't matter how fast you kill the ads, the boss is gonna stay flying there even if you've cleared everything. After some time it's gonna come down, and then we're back into phase 1. Handle the same mechanics and make sure though that you focus any remaining ads. For example, you might have the Corrupted Priest still up. Make sure that you finish him before switching to the boss, because this is purely a control fight and handling the phase 2s is the most crucial part. So you want to deal with these ads before switching back to the boss. Once you've done the mechanics of phase 1 again and you bring the boss down to 45%, then it's time for a second phase 2, which is almost the same like the first one, but with a small addition of an extra ad.
The new ad in the second phase 2 is the Shadowfall Warden, and this ad is only going to be casting one new ability, which can be handled by the person holding the eye. This new ability is Fel Conduit, and it's going to be casting Fel Lightning onto the raid and deal damage to everyone hit. You can only interrupt this ability while holding the eye, so whoever is holding the eye needs to make sure they're actually interrupting the Warden.
Yeah, so because you actually have all the ads from the first phase 2 with the addition of this ad, so you still have the Phantasmal Radiance and you still have the Corrupted Priest, what we found is the easiest way to handle all of this together is to just throw the eye to a Shaman healer, a Resto Shaman, because he can dispel the bombs and also kick the Fel Conduits, since the Shaman has a ranged kick and it also has a very short cooldown, so he doesn't need to throw it to someone else to keep kicking after that. Now once this phase 2 is over, you're gonna go back into phase 1. Again, just finish all the ads that are remaining before switching to the boss, because it's just gonna make things very easy for you. Once the boss hits 20%, you're going into the last phase 2, the third phase 2, which is by far the hardest one. That's why you're going to save Bloodlust for specifically that phase 2.
Now in this last phase 2, you're going to again have one new extra ad, but you're not going to get any Illusionary Outcasts. This time there's going to be 3 basic ads from Heroic and Normal, and the Mythic ad, and they all have different abilities that you're going to need to handle. The new ad in this phase is the Felraven, and again it only has one ability, which is the Phantasmal Corruption. This is an ability he will cast on the current tank when he reaches 100 energy. Whichever tank gets afflicted by Phantasmal Corruption will be blowing up and applying a debuff which increases fire damage taken to everyone hit. Now you don't want these explosions to be going off at any point, and to prevent this from happening, you can throw the eye to the tank right before the Felraven is about to hit 100 energy. Now for the first Phantasmal Corruption, the tank should keep the eye until the Shadowfell Warden casts Fel Conduit, and he can then interrupt it before throwing the eye back to the healer.
Now in terms of the priority in which you want to kill the ads in phase 2, there is a strict order which you should follow. The most important ad to kill is the Felraven, but luckily you only get it once in the last phase 2. Then you want to be killing the Phantasmal Radiances, which is the Mythic ad, the Ghost of Iskar, and you get in every phase 2. Then you want to prioritize killing the Warden, which is the robot, and you get it in the second and third phase 2. And then lastly, you want to kill the Corrupted Priest, which you get in all the phase 2s. The Illusionary Outcasts are just going to get cleaved off. You don't need to worry about them. They don't do anything special. And that's all the ads you need to worry about. Once this phase is over and the boss is back, he will not go back into phase 2 ever again. So he's going to stay into phase 1 until he's actually dead this time. So again, just finish off all the ads that you have remaining from the last phase 2 before switching back to the boss. And then just nuke him down until he hits 0%. Now, there is an enrage in this fight, but you shouldn't have too many issues with it. If everyone is alive until the last phase 2, that should be enough. The only time we did have him hit the enrage was when we had people dying off from the start of the fight or flying off, so we couldn't combat res them, but that should not be the case in your kills.
Now there's also a couple of tips and tricks for this fight. The first one has to do with phase 2, and it's that it's possible to kill the Phantasmal Radiances before they even cast Change of Despair with the usage of Legendary Ring and other personal cooldowns. If you go for this tactic to kill the Phantasmal Radiances before they cast Change of Despair, even in the last phase 2, you will kill it before the Felraven.
Yeah, this will make your phase 2s way easier because you don't have to actually spread out anymore. And you don't have to deal with these finding your pairs and all that confusion and throwing the eye to these people. You can just have the eye bounce just between your healer, ideally a Resto Shaman, and in the last phase 2 you throw it to your tank for the Felraven when it reaches 100 energy, and that's it. So it makes it a lot easier, but you need to be able to make that DPS check. So if you cannot do that, then just stick to the priority that I just mentioned before.
Now the next tip is to use the Exorcist raid tools and the Iskar assist module they have. This gives you a little grid on your screen and you can just right click on it to throw the eye instantly instead of having to target someone and then press your macro to use your special action button. It'll also show which players are afflicted by winds by giving them a different color, so you can easily recognize who you have to throw it to.
Now the last thing which will probably help with having some consistency while progressing in this fight is to have a few selected people who generally handle the Eye of Anzu throughout the whole fight. This will make it easier because these people will get really used to handling it and who needs it and when. And then the rest of the people who are not specifically assigned to handle it can just instantly throw it to one of these guys without thinking of who should take it. This, for example, will help with handling the Shadow Repost. So what we did is we just had our 2 Warlocks handle the eye in the phase 1s, and every time there was a Shadow Repost, the one Warlock was throwing it to the other one so that it never fell on the ground, and they just bounced it between themselves because Warlocks are Warlocks and they have more health and they never die. So this made it a lot easier for them to just focus on it and everyone else to just focus on their DPS.
Now there's a couple of debuffs you want to keep track of on this fight. The first debuff is Fel Chakram. You get afflicted by this debuff when you're the target of the boss's cast Fel Chakram and you need to move to the assigned positions. Second debuff is for the healers only and you need to track this on your raid frames. This is the Phantasmal Wounds, and whoever is targeted by this, you're going to need to heal them up to above 90% health to remove it. The next debuff is a debuff in phase 2, and this is Fel Bomb. This is the bomb debuff that the healer with the eye needs to dispel. Now all healers need to keep track of this debuff in case you need to back up this spell for your shaman or whichever healer is assigned to actually dispelling it with the eye. Now the last debuff is Dark Bindings. These are the debuffs from the Change of Despair, and you need to make sure that you only move into your partner and not others afflicted by Dark Bindings.
And that's all we have to say about this fight. It might sound a little bit complicated, but really, it's a really easy fight. The only hard parts are the phase 2s. The first one is pretty easy, so the only hard part is the second phase 2 and the third phase 2. That's why we're using the Bloodlust in the last phase 2, which makes it a lot easier. So if you manage to handle this, you're gonna be good to go. It's not really a tight gear check, it's just more about handling the eye and having everyone realize what needs to be done with the eye. So make sure that everyone is aware when they have the eye and they know who they need to throw it to and that they are fast with it. You cannot just AFK with the eye for many seconds because that's gonna go very badly. People are gonna fly off and they're gonna be angry. And yeah, that's basically it. Good luck, guys.
Good luck clipping Iskar's wings, and remember to like, comment, and subscribe for more Mythic Hellfire Citadel guides.
See you at the next guide, guys.